It's been published in Japanese. There is the cruel irony of life. So, since you Americans who believe in freedom of speech and freedom of the press are not allowed to read this because John and Patsy Ramsey would not allow it to be published, the Japanese aren't afraid of their lawsuits. So the Japanese took the leap and published this. Now, it's 325 pages long, and it's got footnotes in it and stuff like that. So I can't really share the entire thought behind you. But I can share 1% of it, and probably the most important percent of it, the opening 7 pages. So without further ado, here is the first publication. That would be slander, according to the Ramseys. Libel's when you put it in writing. So this is the first American slander of John and Patsy Ramsey's conduct from my book called JonBenet Ramsey, Prostitution of Justice. And it begins, the title of chapter 1 is, Can You See My Hand? And there's a quotation which I took out of context from John Douglas. John Douglas, you know, is the super profiler they based the Silence of the Lambs profiler on. He was hired by John Ramsey to say John Ramsey didn't write the note. But anyhow, here's a little quote from John Douglas's Mindhunter, in which he says the Ramseys are innocent. Only it's on a different part of this book. Quite clearly, she had reasons for what she had done, and therefore could convince herself that she had done nothing wrong. That was why she passed the polygraph. On Christmas night, 1996, 6-year-old beauty princess JonBenet Ramsey was killed in the home of her parents in Boulder, Colorado. This is the story of how and why the law failed and continues to fail to address the facts and manner of her death. The law in the United States, its Constitution of personal freedoms and protections, and the lawyers who administer it, all must take some responsibility for failed justice in the death of JonBenet Ramsey. In fact, this ancient legal system clunks like an ox cart on an interstate highway. One justice for the rich, one justice for the poor. The system oozes a polluted mix of media, money, greed, and political power when it merely pretends to address justice. Had the law performed as envisioned 100 years ago, even 50 years ago, John and Patsy Ramsey would have been tried for their apparent complicity in the death of JonBenet. Instead, their public relations maneuvers, their books and interviews, their lawsuits, and especially their lawyers, have squeezed pus from the blind eyes of justice. Had the law performed as citizens, sane persons are asked to imagine the horror of JonBenet's last moments over and over, thanks to the constant replay on tabloid television and in tabloid headlines. We look to our own consciences, our own obligations to our children, and cannot believe that John and Patsy, devout Christians and respected members of the community, could have been involved in such a crime. We saw Patsy raise her finger on national television and warn parents in Boulder to hold your babies close. There's a killer out there. Her voice cracks, and our hearts break as John